The conversations and information provided are not intended to substitute professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.
The opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not reflect the view of Humana Military or the Department of Defense.
Welcome to the Operation Within podcast, where we talk about health and a deeper sense of well-being.
Operation Within is a collective initiative to optimize holistic health matters and nourish within community, within self, and within family.
Thank you for joining the conversation on Operation Within podcast. We are your hosts, Mel
and Marty, and our conversations are real, they're raw, and reflective.
These conversations offer meaningful dialogue on experiences within the military community, oriented to empower and strengthen health and vitality in our communities who serve.
We want to give a special thanks to Humana Military and our partners who have brought Operation Within to life.
Let's dive in. Hello, welcome to Operation Within. It's Mel, and I am here with Sergeant First Class Christopher Bullis. He is an active duty medic for 19 years, and he currently works at the largest training battalion in the Army and helps run the H2F programs. I'm so excited to have him here because this guy is a genius when it comes to holistic health and wellness, and well, definitely a creative with it. So good, and I'm a good friend, good colleague, and just so grateful to have you here, Chris. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah.
So share with us a little bit about your military background and kind of your journey, 19 years.
Yeah, 19 years. It's been a hell of a run. So I joined the Army in 2003, and I was kind of out of high school. Had a couple years or a year working, and was like, this isn't the direction I want to go. So joined the Army, became a combat medic, and went to Korea, did some time there, and then came back and was stationed in Fort Lewis, and love Fort Lewis. Fort Lewis is awesome. And I was involved with a bunch of deployments with the Stryker Brigade in Fort Lewis. We went to Iraq twice, and then Afghanistan. It was just like back to back to back, like consecutive deployment, like bam, bam, bam. We had a 9-month or 10-month break between the second and the third. So
over how many year duration?
That was over 6 years.
Wow.
6 years, 3 deployments. The first one was for 15 months, and the next 2 were years, 2 years. So, yeah. And then I came to Fort Sam, where I was a instructor at the NCO Academy and taught the Advanced Leader course, and then was a platoon sergeant in Fort Bliss, Texas, and then came here to be a drill sergeant and got involved in holistic health and fitness, and here we are.
That's amazing. And that was back when deployments were really long. Like that's a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that, what was it, back in 2010 they started to do 2011 they started breaking the deployments down to 9 months.
Yeah, so it was like 2011, 2012-ish. Some units were pegged for that 9-month, and then that 9-month became the standard. I'm sure there was probably like a trial period associated with it to see, like, does this work? Is it feasible? But yeah, the unit that replaced us in Afghanistan, they were only there for 9 months, and there was a couple other ones that were there for a year. But yeah.
Well, I think too, it's like part of why we're here today is to talk about this H2F stuff and really prioritizing soldier well-being. And when you think about, again, 2 years gone on a deployment, how that impacts not only the ability to come back and reintegrate into the United States, and how that impacts families and all these things. It's almost like the military does a lot of trial and error of, okay, we're going to do this, but okay, this is obviously, these statistics are now coming up and we need to do something about it. And I think that's kind of what evolved to H2F in 2018, 2019, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a concept paper that was written by Major Ramator, and I had an opportunity to talk to her on my podcast. And the concept paper painted a real grim picture of like what the Army looks like presently, the behavioral health issues, the obesity. We weren't in shape as an Army, so it was just like looking at the Army from this very wide lens, and it just didn't look good. So trying to figure out a way to like get after that and combat some of these issues was almost like necessary to look at a holistic approach to creating a better, more lethal force.
Well, and I think too is when you explore the domains of what wellness is, where as soldiers and in the military, it's just so drive on and achievement oriented, that it's definitely kind of counter to the social conditioning in the military. And if you want to take a moment and share, what is H2F? We're talking about H2F. For those who don't know, what is H2F?
Oh man, there's so many different ways to answer that question. Because H2F, it's really broad. But essentially what the Army is becoming to understand is that there are various domains that affect everything in all aspects of your life. So you have the physical, the mental, spiritual, nutrition, and sleep. And all of those specific domains work for or against you, depending on how much energy and effort you put into those domains and how well you are linking them together. So everything in life, it could potentially affect some sort of outcome. So if you're looking at it like I'm in the Army and I want to perform better in combat, what do I need to do in order to be successful in that? Well, I need to eat right. I need to exercise appropriately. I need to work on my mindset, understand who I am as a person, my spiritual aspect, and make sure I'm sleeping, all that stuff. And all that makes me a more lethal soldier.
Well, and I love that they highlight the spiritual hygiene, because I think that people, when you hear that, it's like, okay, well, what religion do you follow? Or that it's very superficial in a way, or kind of what you affiliate with. But it's so much more, because when you think about wellness and well-being, the importance of meaning and spiritual hygiene is essentially connecting with what's meaningful to you, feeling like that life, there's meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
And so even each of these domains break down into so many categories and so many aspects. So it really provides, leaders in the military a lot of options, a lot of ways to creatively integrate this into, their soldiers.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really all depends on how you're communicating that and how you want to, be an advocate for your soldiers in that space. But I just recently had Chaplain Van Dress on, and she was talking about the spiritual readiness assessment that's a part of the H2F doctrine, and how you can learn and develop your spirituality. And it was super awesome to learn and get a better understanding of why knowing who you are and what's at the core of you is so paramount to pretty much everything that you do in your life. Like, who am I, and how does that relate to what I do every day? And how does that relate to the energy that I have to do the certain things that I got to do during the day? So that was a pretty awesome conversation.
Talking about our nature and who we are is, and again, as a yoga therapist in the work I do, it's all about coming back to your nature and knowing yourself. And I think that as a society, we are so patterned and conditioned to subscribe to what, okay, they said we need to be like this, or, think about going through school. It's like, to be successful in life, you have to go to college, you have to do these things. These are the careers that make the most money. This is what success looks like. So we adopt all these beliefs about who we're supposed to be, which then creates a deep separation from who we really are. And what's beautiful about these conversations, and even these, like a spiritual assessment or these different self-reflection based practices, is that we get to explore, what are really my strengths? What am I really good at? What do I really love? Like, what lights me up and is fun for me? And getting people to connect back to those things, it's almost like this path that, it's essentially a path that helps us know ourselves. And then we can make choices that are more in, what I would say is in alignment, but more relevant. So then it's more fun. Life becomes so much more fun when you're doing what you love and what your skills are, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's I'm trying to I had a thought and I just lost it. That's crazy. But yeah, to back to your passion thing that you were discussing, it's just like, it's just so easy to just get like immersed in something that allows you to lose sight of who you are. Like, and that's kind of like what the Army does. Because you understand, like, especially the people that first join the Army, and this is where I was going. I remember my thought now. Thank God. Okay. So when you originally joined the Army, you have this understanding and this concept of like what you need to do and who you need to be, and all like those Army culturisms and stuff. And then it's good and important that you realize that those are a part of the Army, because we want you to adopt those values and those beliefs and everything like that. But for a long time, the military was associated with very poor behavior as far as health is concerned. Like I'll eat whatever I want and I'll be able to work it off. I'll sleep when I'm dead. I just need to lift heavy and often, and screw stretching or all that stuff. That was a part of the culture, and it was ingrained into it. So when these individuals first join the Army, they adopt these types of behaviors, and then they like that becomes who they are. It really does interfere with leaders' abilities to train and adapt a real well-rounded force. But yeah, it's super important that you get involved and be more passionate so that you can better understand yourself, because you don't want to lose sight of that while adopting all of those cultural aspects of the Army.
Well, I think this is what happens to a lot of people, and why getting out and, moving back into civilian life is so challenging for many people, is because when the Army or the military is all you know, and this type of lifestyle and the ability just to look at someone's shirt and be like, I know who you are, all the things about you. Yeah. And then you go into the civilian world and you can't tell. Like, it's such a culture shock. And part of that is this ingrainment that happens of, we become a machine in a way, right?
Yeah.
And so, this stuff of mindfulness that's being integrated into the military, that it's kind of like, well, that's soft, or that's weak, or what is that? It's like, it's shocking, I think, for a lot of people, especially, for someone like you who's been in for 19 years, it's these things. I think current military leaders, it's like there has to be an openness to be able to adopt this. So I want to invite you to share, maybe when you first heard about this stuff, like what made you so open to exploring H2F more, and really making it a priority to bring this in and support Gladiator program in 232?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So in 2002. 13, I think it was, I had an opportunity to go to Master Resiliency course, a Master Resiliency training course. And that was really eye-opening, because at that time I was just coming back from my third deployment, and one of probably my hardest deployments in Afghanistan. And things were rough. I was struggling in my current marriage, and like it really felt like the wheels were falling off. So it was a very well-timed course to being for me to be able to learn how to resolve a lot of that conflict within me and move forward positively, and just to like help drive optimism. So like that's kind of like there's various tenets that are involved in Master Resiliency course, but one of them is how do you become more optimistic? Like, how do you see things through that lens that allows you to move through things productively and not get bogged down by all the negative that could be that is always around you? And that was awesome. And it was such an incredibly eye-opening experience for me, because I was realizing that I didn't necessarily have to sit with all this. I could productively resolve a lot of my emotions and help better understand who I was and what I was going through, and then be grateful for that experience was probably the most like eye-opening thing. Like, just understanding how to bring gratitude into my life to drive optimism, and how much of an impact that little thing did. And for those of you who don't understand, it was this gratitude practice that we had to write down 3 things that we were grateful for every day. So write down 3 things that you're grateful for every day, and then why you're grateful for them, and what what impact that thing has in your life, and focusing on that. And then we would do a breathing exercise afterwards. And it was just like that right there every day for 15 minutes, I think is what it was, just 15 minutes every morning. It was just like, you could feel it. Like the weight was just like, oh my gosh, I feel lighter. I feel happier. And I was like, obviously there's something to this. This is amazing. So it was like, I came back to work and I was telling everybody about my experience and everything like that. And they were like, oh man, you really drank the Kool-Aid, bro. I'm like, yeah, I did. It's really good Kool-Aid.
I feel better.
Yeah. So then I tried to be an advocate for it in all ways. So when you go to the Master Resiliency training course, it's your expectation to go back to your unit and train people on the things that you experienced and the lessons that you learned while you were in the course. So I was like, yes, now I'm empowered with all this knowledge. I have to now go and teach everybody so that everybody else has the opportunity to feel the way that I felt. And because everybody that in that point in time, when I was at that point, most every NCO had an opportunity to experience combat in some way, shape, or form. So that was 2012. We were in, that was like the surge in Afghanistan. We were just coming down from the surge in Iraq. Things were ramping down. So at that point, like, I really feel like in my experience, that was when the Army needed resiliency, needed holistic health and fitness the most. So I just really wanted to be an advocate for it. And everybody in my space was kind of struggling with their own stuff. So trying to figure out a way to like bring that to them and help them understand, like, there are small things that you can do daily that have a significant impact in your life. So that was really my introduction to holistic health and fitness.
Did they give you guys context of, like, at this, when you feel this way, here's tools to address it? Or kind of, if you want to share maybe a few tools or specific examples that maybe even listeners can take away from this?
Man, it was such a long time ago.
I love, actually, one thing I do love that from one of the things they teach is the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's really,
yeah.
I don't know if you want to share about that.
Yeah, of course. So that's probably like the easiest one. So if any Army person is listening to this, you probably know icebergs more than anything else, because it's just like the one that they teach all the time. So the understanding is that your core values and your core beliefs form a lot of who you are and how you proceed through your day. So if I guess the idea of the iceberg is that you only see a little bit above the surface, but the majority of the iceberg is underneath the water, and that's the things that are maybe outside of your awareness during regular interactions with people. So say we're having a conversation and you say something, and I feel like triggered is a common word people like to use now. So if I feel triggered and I'm not sure why I'm upset at something that you just said, it's just like a conversation in passing, but now I feel angry. There's probably something going on underneath that you haven't resolved yet, or you haven't figured out. So in an effort to drive more awareness, you go through this practice to help you figure out what this iceberg, the unresolved thing underneath the surface of the water, really is. So you just got to sit. You could either do it yourself or you could do it with somebody else, but you ask yourself what and how questions. So what about this made me angry? How does it make me feel? And you just try to process that as best you can so that you eventually get to the core underlining value or core belief that has ultimately affected you in this moment. So then, of course, you can either resolve it, whether, do I need this? Is this going to benefit me? Or do I need to be more aware next time when I have a conversation so I'm not triggered?
Well, and I think that there's an aspect where we can have compassion for other people. When you start practicing that, then you can realize when somebody does something, there's more underneath, and it probably wasn't about me. Yeah. It's a really liberating practice, and this means of self-inquiry is essentially, an mindfulness. Like, we've talked about mindfulness a lot on this podcast, and it's essentially paying attention on purpose without reactivity or judgment. And when you think about self-inquiry, where we use an iceberg or whatever the context is to be able to explore what this is really about, it detaches our reactivity to things. So versus just carrying, I have an angry thought, so I'm angry, we're able to separate that thought from the experience and unpack it if we wanted, or just creating space between the two so we don't react in a negative way in our lives. So yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they've been doing this stuff for a while, and seeing it kind of come together into holistic health and fitness, so into H2F. You know, how do you see, so you kind of shared one example of how this has helped, you know, maybe when it comes to what are some things that specifically H2F or applying holistic health and fitness to your life has really changed for you?
Oh, so many things. Oh, man. That is a very long list. So I'll first start by saying I know a lot more about who I am because of holistic health and fitness and all the various things that I've chose to explore for myself. Awareness is really, like, I say that's probably the paramount foundation of holistic health and fitness, is to just drive awareness. And really, like, the more you know about yourself and what you're good and bad at, the better you'll be able to navigate this space for yourself and drive outcomes that are or better outcomes for yourself. So that's really what where it started, like wanting to know more about who I was. It's definitely benefited me in that way. Like, I'm now a lot more aware of who I am, how I feel about things, what I can do, what I can't do. And it then becomes really empowering when you become more aware. And then you can, you feel like you can do more almost. So which is really, really cool. But I say for a very specific thing, it's helped me with relationships. Not only personal relationships, but work relationships. I am able now to work with and communicate better with various people, just because of the practices that I've chosen for myself, which is really nice, because then you get to have really awesome work relationships, and then come back and have a better personal relationship with your significant other. So my fiance and I, we resolve a lot of stuff together because we know and understand the benefits of resolving all of that almost immediately, and we understand that we need to be support for one another in those various things. So understanding that and why it's important helps. And if you sit with that and you just hey, she really frustrated me today and I don't want to talk about it, I just want to time will eventually figure it out, and then you just don't do anything about it, and then you're feeling really heavy throughout the day, and maybe you don't get enough sleep that night, and then you wake up and you're feeling groggy, and then you don't do the things that you need to do in order to take care of yourself,
and then you eat terribly, and it's all the domains are connected.
Yes.
And this is so spot on with regarding resolve. Part of it is our ability to be aware that we're upset, because a lot of times people just get upset and then they just, again, drive on. Yeah. But your awareness that something feels off, what is this about? And again, that's what mindfulness is. It's paying attention without judgment, because a lot of times we don't look at what our issues are because we judge them. We're like, well, I don't want to look at that because that means I'm bad. But the reality is it's simply curriculum. People don't realize with life, I mean, maybe they do, but I'm going to just say it, is that this is life is not easy. It's not meant to be easy, but we are growing and evolving in so many ways. And these little experiences, even, a little fight that happens, it's your ability to reconcile it or humble yourself or unpack why you believed what you believed is only going to serve you and help you as you become wiser, because all wisdom is healed pain. That's it.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, this is why this stuff, it can be such a superpower,
Yeah.
So relationships, what about physical performance?
So physical performance was the Army was slow. I think slow to figure out why that's connected to everything. They're just now realizing, which is awesome. But because I am a product of my environment, it was slow for me to figure it out as well.
Can you share how is it connected?
So understanding what you're physically capable of, and in fitness is important because it helps drive a lot of your awareness to other things. So more importantly, like I understand in a workout, I need to eat right in order to get the best out of that workout. And then if I'm eating right, I feel better. And then if I feel better, then I'm going to produce better work outcomes. I'm going to be a little bit more efficient and everything. And then I think that fitness is just like, it's a good starting point for most people in holistic health and fitness, understanding how to perform better. Because when you understand that you need sleep and nutrition and you need to recover and all those things make you a better fitness performer, it helps you bring all those other holistic health and fitness aspects together to make you like a better, get a better score in your ACFT, do better at whatever workouts you're choosing. Mine is CrossFit. So in order to be better at that, I need to pay attention to those other things.
Well, and the physical is the infrastructure for the mind to exist. It's like we have to use the body and go through the body a lot of times to change the mind. And I really believe, again, this is because my work with yoga, it's all mind-body medicine, that for a lot of people, like if I was just to say, hey, sit down and just breathe, or just go meditate and be in your stillness for 5 minutes, that would be so uncomfortable for most people. And that's because other than, again, it's counter our social norms. But the other piece of it is that if you haven't exercised or connected with the body, it's very hard to tap into deeper domains of the mind. In yogic tradition, the whole purpose of yoga was to prepare the body for meditation, right? So there's this historical understanding of why you use the body to access the mind. And again, I'm just sharing from my scope and the work I do. But when I think about the Army and physical training and the physical performance aspect, it's like the patterns, because they talk about this, and we've had conversations several times about movement lethality and neural patterns, and the way you train is often the way you perform. And so having a little more intention with training is just, it's so important, you know?
Yeah, actually, so this is a good point that you just brought up. So intention with training. So the tactical athlete program, like how do you train people for that specific combat mission, and what type of outcomes do you need to or do you expect, and how do you drive those outcomes through training? That's super important. The old school mentality, push-ups, sit-ups, 2-mile run. Well, how does that translate to combat? Well, it really doesn't. So how do you train people to be like more mindful of like, these are the things that I'm going to need to do. I'm going to need to, crouch and move and get over a wall. And I'm going to be able to, I need to deadlift, whether it's equipment and carry it, like a ammo can, or a person, an injured person. Like these are the things that are going to be expected of me in combat. So I should train those things specifically so that I can be better for that in that moment.
Yeah, no, huge. Yeah, and I think too, because in H2F they talk about with the mental hygiene, arousal control, and our ability to, so when we find our edges or the discomfort, learning to essentially, I mean, if you want to practice arousal control, it's deploying the exhale and softening the body and down regulating the nervous system while you're at the edge or while you're like at the end of, it's just so hard, because that's going to train your nervous system to not freak out essentially on a deployment, right?
Yeah. You can do that really easy with planks. That's for sure.
Yes. Yeah, just smile the whole time.
Yeah, that's what you say all the time. Just like smile.
I know.
Just be happy. It's okay.
I've had the privilege to teach yoga for the group that Chris works with. And I mean, this is a big thing, I think, with resiliency training is how do we somaticize it, where we take it to the body. Like this is patterns we're learning in the body. So then people start to default, like their behavior is default now, self-regulation, self-inquiry. So it's all training nervous system. So I think H2F has this brilliance to it of how do we tackle these arenas to bring them together. And part of that is using the mind as you're using the body. So it's like the body is important. Physical performance is important, but I almost want to propose that it's not about achievement in physical performance. It's about adaptation. Like it's that my body is capable to adapt to this environment or this situation versus like, look how fast I ran this mile, but now I'm like knocked out for the next 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. It's a balance. That's for sure.
Yeah. Do you want to share maybe a little bit about mental hygiene if you're comfortable? Or?
Yeah. That's too easy. So as I said before, multiple deployments. My first 3 were some of the hardest. So obviously things happen. You see things that other people might not always see, and experience things, do things, all that stuff. So that obviously takes a toll, and I think most people now understand that, which is really good because it helps reverse the stigma, which is important. You know, like it's not normal to see dead bodies everywhere. It's not normal to pick up pieces of people. So understanding what you need to do now because of those experiences is like the next step. Like understanding and recognizing that you just experienced something that's incredibly abnormal. Now you need to do something with it. So I think it was my first deployment when we came back. Our chaplain had a talk with everybody in the auditorium. We had a bunch of like mandatory training, stuff like that, like that we had to do, which is such the Army thing, but that's cool. But the chaplain got up there and he basically said, because everybody in that auditorium at that point, when we were in Iraq, we were the surge of Baghdad, everybody had experienced something terrible during that deployment. And he said that everything that you've experienced, all of those reactions were very normal reactions to a very abnormal thing. So the emotions that you're experiencing, the feelings, the anger, the short-temperedness, all that stuff, it's a very normal response to something very abnormal. And I really I was like, wow, that's probably super important. I should probably remember that. And then also use that for my own awareness. So that was what opened the door for me to wanting to get help. And maybe not necessarily help at the time, because I don't necessarily feel like I needed help then, but just understanding, I just probably needed to talk to somebody about what I had experienced. I think that was probably a better way to explain it. So yeah, so that was my first introduction into behavioral health, and just like letting somebody know, like, hey, yeah, I had to deal with a bunch of dead bodies. I was a medic, so I treated a bunch of injured people. I was in combat. We got blown up. I got shot at, like all these things. And, and then having a trained professional to be able to be on the receiving end of that and be like, well, how does that make you feel? And at first you're like, well, I don't know. Like, yeah, I came here for you to help me. But really, so it wasn't until later that I realized those questions are important to help you become more aware about yourself. It's not necessarily, it's not like a test or anything. So a lot of people expect the behavioral health professional to like solve all your problems. No, that's not how it goes. You solve your problems, and they facilitate that for you. So it was much later, actually relatively recently, where I started to learn that I was the captain of my own ship, and it's my choices that drive how I feel about things. So when you're thinking about something that's troubling or could be very traumatic for you, you get the opportunity to say, how do I feel about this? What are these feelings? Do I need them? And are they important to it? And I guess unpack them. So like when you get triggered in traffic, so that's something that happens to me periodically. It happens to a lot of people. You get road rage, right? So you just understanding that you have a choice to feel all these things. Do I need to be mad? Like, why am I choosing to be mad right now? I'm fine. Like, everything's okay. Like, yeah, he cut me off, but we're still going to make it on time. Like, nothing's changed. So being able to talk to yourself in those specific moments is something that I've really been able to take away from it. Like, everything's a choice.
Well, this process of reframe, I almost feel like therapy is so powerful to help teach us how to do reframes. So it's the reframe invitation in the traffic, right? Is like, man, I hope they're getting wherever they need to go. Maybe there's an emergency, right? And to be honest, with my experience working with traumatic brain injury and different populations that really struggle with driving, and it's like, it's such a big deal for them to go places, and we want that. Like, we want to empower that. But there's a lot of fear of driving because they just don't have the same sense. They're depending on the situation. So, the practice of reframe of compassion, or the reframe of, this doesn't serve me, I'm not going to be upset about this, so those negotiations, we do this. So whether we're doing yoga, or I think a lot of the things that H2F teaches is it teaches us how to pause and notice.
Yeah.
It's like, and then it's almost like as you exercise that, then it becomes a default in the different things of your life, like when things happen,
Yeah, you get to program it a little bit so you're more mindful the next time you feel it. Like, if you're noticing, you're paying attention, you get to be a little bit more aware of when that could potentially trigger you in the future.
Yeah.
And another thing about mindfulness too is like, I share a very specific example. So I was in the shower, and we've got these like little suction sticky things that suction to the side that hold all like the shampoo and everything. So the suction fails periodically. So it failed and fell and hit the floor, and I wasn't paying attention. Very loud, abrupt bang. And for most people in our community, could be a very traumatic thing, especially when you're not expecting it, especially in the shower when you feel safe, and then all of a sudden you're not, and then immediately thrust into that panic feeling like, oh my God, what happened? And then you just feel it, like your heart rate elevates, everything's tense, muscles clench, and you're just like, God, and then you're angry, and then immediately after you're angry, you're like sad, and then you feel like guilty that you had this reaction, and it's just like all this is happening all at once, and you're like, what is happening? I'm out of control. But in that moment, once you realize all of those things are happening, you feel the water, and you're like, all right, the water is on me. I feel the water. I feel the water running through my toes into the drain. I smell the shampoo. I am here in my shower in my home, and then you're like on purpose paying attention to everything that is around you so that you can feel relief from the chaotic, intense emotional roller coaster that you just went through in like half a second.
That's an amazing example. So thank you for sharing that, because that shows, it's like you don't resist that you might have a response, or because that's the biggest thing is I think people when with holistic health and fitness, like I have to get all my stuff, or I have to be good at this to do it. And a lot of people approach mindfulness or yoga or self-awareness with, I'm not good at it, so I don't want to do it. But it's actually, I'm going to use another shower analogy. It's like saying that I'm dirty, so I can't shower.
Interesting. Like,
no, you're dirty, so you should shower. If you struggle with self-awareness, then you should do self-reflection. It's like I guess, access barrier for a lot of people. But when you start to do this, it trains that natural ability to know how to come back to the present, how to use the resources that are present for you, and regulate. That was conscious control of self-regulation. Yeah. Which is ultimately what holistic health and fitness is driving to do. So, yeah. Well done. No, that's beautiful.
Took me a while, but I figured it out.
But I think that it's a journey. And one thing that people need to remember about wellness is that it's not a destination. Yeah. It's an ever-evolving process of knowing our potential and our accountability to it.
Yeah.
And so there's no like, oh, I've arrived to my wellness. It's just this ongoing relationship. And I mean, essentially it's a practice continued on. And I think that's something that people don't realize with wellness or mindfulness and these things. You're not arriving anywhere. There's I always say it's like the proverb of once a fruit becomes ripe, it begins to rot. Or like once the flower blooms, it withers. Like if once we arrive and we think we know everything, it's over.
Yeah.
So this is an ongoing journey through our life that we get to just continue to collect tools to enhance our abilities, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a pretty good segue to kind of like what I'm trying to accomplish and help people understand. Like I'm not an expert. I mean, I know that you introduced me as a genius in holistic health and fitness, but that is not true. I just like to practice a lot of holistic health and fitness, and I did so back, it was like when I want to say when I was trying to pick up sergeant, just what did I need to do in order to be better at this job, in this career field. And that made me think, like, how do I become a better soldier? What ways do I need to think about being a soldier in order to produce a better outcome? And that kind of helped me drive a little bit more spirituality into my life. Like, what makes me? What do I need to do to make me perform better? And that in turn made me more of an athlete. Because like, in order to be good at the Army, I need to do this, and then in order to be good at this, I need to eat better. And slowly I started putting it together. Like, in order for me to be a better soldier, I needed to take better care of my body and my mind. So that's basically what I want people to understand, that you're empowered to create better outcomes for you. And ultimately, like, the Army deserves the highest quality of soldier. So what are you doing in order to achieve that for yourself, to be that awesome soldier that the Army needs you to be? And that's why I think holistic health and fitness is so amazing, and ultimately will produce these awesome results eventually, as it kind of takes hold and more leaders start adapting these practices. Like, how do you get better outcomes in your soldiers? You help them understand all of these things and allow them to drive their own outcomes however they want and whatever that looks like for them.
Well, and that the way that they can see the efficacy, like the impact. So like an example, when we do PT and we take them through mindfulness drills or H2F themed yoga, it's like starting in the beginning with one stretch, go through the sequence, revisit that stretch, and they can see all this new range of motion.
Yeah.
Like little things like that, because I think part of it is helping soldiers reclaim themselves and believe in themselves. And this aspect of that there is meaning and purpose to everything that they're doing, that yes, it can feel like the Army can swallow you and just like, this is pointless. And then, you got dumb things you got to do because that's, whatever. But at the end of the day, that you're always connected to that meaning and purpose. And I want to also say, though, regarding the genius thing, you're an example, I think, of somebody who is taking this doctrine, and there's I've met a handful of people doing this, and it's just so important for the future of the military to intelligently apply this.
Yeah.
And that's really your genius, seeing how this all fits and fits together, because a lot of people don't have the vision. It's like, okay, so this, what is it, like 17 chapters of H2F? It's a lot to process and read. Most people haven't even opened the manual to understand what H2F is. And so it can be very intimidating and daunting to implement this. But one example that I think, that you have been involved in, is how do you apply it to what you're already doing? And I think that if any leaders or people who are wanting to integrate this into the commands or just apply it more, of course you could do it personally, but look at what you guys are already doing, and then how do you pull some of the tools to just optimize it? So you're not adding anything new, you're just optimizing what you already do.
Yeah. It's been fun, that's for sure. And thankfully we have an amazing commander that empowers us to do all the things that we've been able to accomplish. And he, on our podcast that we did together, he talked about fearless innovation and how, you have to understand the vision. And when you really understand the vision, it becomes really easy to apply all of this effort in order to meet the intent and to accomplish the vision. So that's what we've been able to do.
Well, and there's been, like, with what they have done, there's statistics that have changed. Like, it has made huge impact. And I think that the more commands that do stuff like this and measure it and see, it's like how we practically integrate this is we have to try it. We have to do it some way and just see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, that's his thing. Like, let's just try it and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we tried it, and most of the time, we're producing quality outcomes.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Yeah, but yeah, to your credit, to your point of what you were saying, like numbers, like I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but everybody says like UCMJ and behavioral deviance is down, and we're able to create better fitness outcomes, and we've been able to separate less people from the Army, like a significantly amount. So I don't have the numbers, but it was like 100 plus, almost 200 soldiers that we were kicking out of the Army every year for medical issues, and now we're in the teens, because we recognized a problem. Captain Vargas and Lieutenant Colonel Menendez said, hey, this is the problem, and we need to fix it. And those leaders put together a team, and we had passions for holistic health and fitness, and we applied them where we felt like it was appropriate. And we were able to put together this rehab program and recondition and save the Army a lot of money and produce a lot of significant outcomes within individuals. Like, there's a lot of people that have reached back and said, now I've had an opportunity to experience holistic health and fitness in my unit. I want to be more involved because it helped me so much when I was in 232, or my unit doesn't have a holistic health and fitness program. I loved the holistic health and fitness program in 232. I want to bring it to my unit. So we get those types of feedback all the time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it's really something that is new. And this stuff takes time, just like anything, but it's such beautiful work. And I'm really honored to have you here as our work with Humana of spreading holistic fitness and wellness, I guess mental hygiene and all of those things that it's really, I think as a society, especially, post-pandemic or in this time era with mental health issues, like this stuff is relevant to everybody. And the power and importance of this is it's inclusive. No matter where you are in your life, there's ways to begin these self-awareness practices and these tools. And I always believe too, even if you have physical limitations, that just by connecting with your breath, that can become a bridge to other things in time. So yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to share before we...
Yeah, so I guess to anybody who's listening, you don't have to be a guru in any way, shape, or form. You just have to recognize that in order to produce better in life, you need to apply a certain amount of energy to taking care of your body, and wherever you want to start, whether it's just eating a little bit healthier or getting more sleep, just one step at a time. That's it.
Beautiful. Yes. Or as I say, one breath at a time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Be sure to follow us on social media. And if you loved this podcast episode, please share with friends, family, and help us get the word out. And until next time, thank you.